You are listening to the Talking Right podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is the Talking Right podcast. I am your host, John Mosman. This will probably be one of the last ones I'm going to be doing on the podcast, at least for a while. I should say it that way. It's not the last podcast, but it's one I'm going to do, and then I'm going to be taking a break because, As I stated on my Facebook wall, I'm just done. I really am. I'm just done with this all. I'm done that trying to have a conversation with people in this place, in this country, in the internet world, all that, and for them that don't even understand what you're trying to say. They don't understand it. They are so caught up. Everyone is caught up in their own just position, their own ideas of what the world are, that they don't listen to what you're saying. It's hard to have an honest, on top of that, intellectual conversation. Look, what happened with Kim Davis is a situation that has both heroes and villains. I don't think Kim Davis is the person that the conservative right, the Christians in this country who are fed up with the idea that that we should acknowledge gay marriage in this country. I think we should acknowledge it as a sense that it is a legal thing. We need to acknowledge it as a civil thing, but they want more than that, and they don't even. And no one that's on the pro-gay side, they're not even refusing that, and that should tell you something, right? They'll say, well, it's still about rights. It's still about the law. Which is a funny thing, given the fact that they don't care about the law when it comes to other people. Only when it comes to the issues that matter. And I've talked about this before, and quite frankly, I'm getting sick of it. I'm done with it. Not only have I said that I'm done with politics, I mean it. I'm done with it. And anything that might be remote with it, I'm done. This is just the final purging, if you will, of this stuff, this BS that's happening. My last official comment, politically, from everything that I've made out there is the fact that I think the American Conservative magazine is not really conservative, but that's it. And the whole Kim Davis, whatever political, although it shouldn't be a political issue at all, I'm done with it. Completely, 100% done. And I don't want this to be an issue that goes on and on and on, but it will be. And I'm resigning from it because I realize there's problems and faults on both sides. And I'm willing to acknowledge that. I'm willing to admit some of those things. And it doesn't seem like anybody does. It seems to be just another issue, as I said in my blog, that will keep on going and going because it's used now as political leverage. It's used to try to get people to vote. It's tried to use to get people to come out. And what happens? And this is the real question I have for people on both sides. What happens now? Do we ever get to a point where we just say, okay, you know what? They're married. I don't think that's real marriage, right? Well, will we get to a point on the right where we stop looking at gays special? And I know it's from an aesthetic standpoint, it seems wrong, right? It's wrong from everything we know, and that's why we probably have such a strong gut impulse against it. But when you think about it, the reasons why we would be against gay marriage from a rightful, considerative position, from a real, true, conservative Christian position, should be the same reason why I know I am against common law marriage. Why I know I am against a lot of these other things. And that's important. We'll be right back.
You are listening to the Talking Right podcast.
Welcome back. Sorry, I had to take a quick break there, but I'm back. And what I was saying was, first of all, I was saying that there's a lot of issues that Christians have chosen to forget when it comes to traditions. And so I understand why a lot of people on the gay marriage side, people who are gay, would perceive that as an issue of discrimination. In a roundabout sense, it is kind of a form of discrimination. Not that opposing gay marriage is, not that thinking that homosexuality is wrong. No, don't get me wrong, because I believe both of those things. But what I'm saying is that when you look at it, when you look at the situation, what Christians have done, they've chosen their battles. And it's interesting that what we say is traditional, what we defend as traditional, has more to do with it being the fact that it has to do with two people of two different sexes. And in that sense, it's more of a cultural thing than it is a religious thing for some of the people who are protecting this idea that they're promoting the conservative value, the Christian conservative value here. Not that that should mar everyone who has an opinion against it, because it's not the point. But we've lost the war. It's done. You can ask yourself, what do we do with it? We can say, how do we get to telling people what's wrong with it? But you know what? It's wrong. And we let it happen quietly. While we were still getting our churches big, while we were still feeling good about having somewhat of a domination culturally and politically in this country, we let it slide. We let other things slide. And we shouldn't be shocked now. And that's what I've said. Now, there's some people out there who are misconstruing the words that I'm saying, and that's something that needs to stop. So let me be clear for you. Let me put it all out there, because this is my last thing politically, and it's the last thing I'm going to be talking about from a cultural stance. From now on, if you hear me on the podcast, if you read my blog, if you see anything on my Twitter account, by the way, Facebook is going to be very inactive. I'm not closing it down, but I'm not going to be doing anything with it for a while. I'm done with Facebook. I'm kind of done with a lot of things else too. I'm just done. Okay? The Shire has ignored the world for so long that now the world has come. Mordor has come. And the thing that was pure, the thing that was without any tar, without any imperfection, has now been destroyed. The idea of a cultural America that represents the traditional values of the family and of the church is gone. It's gone. And let me give you a warning here, people who are going to be like Kim Davis, because you know what? From a standpoint, she's right. She's right to stand up for her beliefs. She's right to stand up for what she thinks is right. But at the same time, she also has to realize she's in a government position. And while I can sit here, and we've had this debate, everyone in the frickin' existence of this country has had this debate of whether or not America is a Christian country or not. Well, let me tell you something. There are some things that it was built on. And even if it wasn't built on a Christian understanding, it was built on an idea that we have rights from God. With that said, I believe that we've become more and more an agnostic, secular country, and that's not good. But the cultural phenomenon now says, look, guess what? You just don't say anything about it. You've got a problem? Fine. You got to deal with it. Either you leave the job. A lot of people have to do that. See, someone like Kim Davis is not going to get much sympathy from the atheist and the secularist. And she shouldn't look for it anyways. Because most of those people are heartless bastards. Sorry to say it, you are. But there's a few good ones out there, but the majority of them are looking for any opportunity to take down and crush our religion. They look down on our religious views. They think our religious views are the problem in the world. They think we are a problem. And as long as our exposing our opinions and us defending our beliefs doesn't get in the way of them having their anti-God, anti-religion paradise, then they're going to be fine with you. Right? But you know what, Kim Davis? It doesn't help. It doesn't help your history, and that you've decided, I'm going to be a warrior for this issue. I'm going to be a cultural warrior. No one asked you, Kim Davis, to be a cultural warrior or stand up against it. You chose to do that. That's fine. Now you're in jail. You should expect this. And I respect people who say, you know what? I know that doing something I think is right, even when it's not considered right by the majority of people anymore, that now I'm going to do this. I respect that. But you have to expect that that's going to be a result. So people who are upset that Kim Davis went to jail, you should expect that. And instead of saying, oh, she's a victim, realize she made a decision to do that. There are no victims in this faith, there are martyrs. Whether you choose to be one or not, most of the time people choose to be them. And and I don't know if we can call her a martyr of the faith because of her bold position. Because, in all intents and purposes, she has shown herself to be somebody who said, I'm not going to do this, and they're going to have to make me do it, or they're going to remove me out of it. Well, she's been removed. Yeah, don't get me wrong, my fellow conservatives. I also see the irony. Really can't call it irony, though. It's the best word to describe it. I can see more, how about this, the hypocrisy of the situation. The left, the liberals, the ones who cry because the children from Mexico are hungry and they're thirsty and, oh no, they have nowhere to go. So we must take them in, even though we don't have a system to help put them properly into our country. Oh no. Don't get me wrong, I am not one of those heartless bastard conservatives which they want to point out to me, which they want to lock us in that box and say, well, unless you want to break the law And unless you want to go against logic, oh, now they're all for the logical position. Now they're all for the legal position. Don't get me wrong. I see it, right? Yes, Matt Walsh, I agree with you. It is funny that now the liberals, who have done everything in their power, the secularists, the gay mafia, everyone who has gone about trying to destroy traditional family and traditional laws and ideas, now want to possess them and now try to pervert them and say, oh, we're taking the Republican standpoint now. We're taking the conservative standpoint. You got to follow the law. You're choosing. And I know the conservatives do it too, liberals. So pipe down. Pipe down. I know what you're trying to think. I know what you're trying to say. But guess what? You're hypocrites. And I know it. I know what conservatives, I know they're hypocrites. But they have some points. And let me tell you something. Gay marriage didn't kill traditional marriage. Divorce did that a long time ago. Feminism did that a long time ago. The Peel After did that a long time ago. We have been, for the longest time, and Christians have been just as much as apt at doing it as the non-Christians, picking and choosing what traditions to follow, to pick and choose what ideas we should follow or not follow. And now guess what happens? We are shocked. Now, yes, don't get me wrong, I do believe. And I see it. It's not just a belief, but it's actually fact, and I see it. That the agnostics, the atheists, that a good sum of them will not be happy until there's no Christians left. I'm more than positive in knowing that a lot of the atheists that I know would be very happy if I just became an atheist, or if I just stopped practicing my religion, because I think my religion's stupid. And they probably think I'm stupid for believing in a God. Whatever. Whatever. Who cares? I don't care what people think of me. Never have. And I know that for a long time, and for a lot of people that I know, don't give a shit about what I have to say. Fine. But you know what? For those who are listening, for those who are listening to this podcast, thank you for listening to this podcast. But you know what? Let me tell you something. Gay marriage didn't kill traditional marriage. Christians have already been in the business of killing traditions ever since they got to this country. Ever since they left Europe. And if Christians don't want to see that cold hard fact, then it's no wonder you were shocked when gay marriage became such a huge thing now. And while I disagree with the way that the judges went by it, not because I don't think what they were trying to say isn't necessarily true, and not that I think that limiting gay marriage from a legal standpoint isn't somewhat unconstitutional, those are not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the idea that a judge interprets something and says, you can't do that, doesn't make it necessarily a law. That's not how the judges are supposed to work. That's what I've said. Of course, I've been misconstrued on that as well. And I'm saying also that you shouldn't even have a law. We shouldn't even have a law. We shouldn't even have that. And I understand why people want to have those same rights. But let's also get past the point that it's also about rights, right? Because we know that let's say the law stands and it becomes law in this country completely. I mean, it's undoubtedly, I mean, there's no more appeals for it. There's nothing, it becomes just solid law, and it has been for, like, let's give a time frame of 5 or 6 years. 10 years. Do you think gay marriage is still going to be an issue? You bet your ass it's going to be an issue. And why? Because for many people in the gay community, they're not going to be happy until they're married in our churches, until we say, oh, you know what, you're married. Your marriage means the same thing as a husband and wife. Now, not only do I disagree with that from a gender standpoint with the rest of my conservative friends, But what my conservative friends aren't really advocating and not really speaking out about and not really telling you is that there's a reason why male and female weddings are the Christian way of that's the idea. That's why those traditions are in place for weddings. It has a doctrinal value for that. It's not just happenstance. And you know what? Christians and evangelical, more Protestant Christians in America have been very happenstance with their theology. Oh, it doesn't matter what kind of music we have. It doesn't matter what kind of lyrics we sing as long as it comes from the heart. That's the tantamount of what the gay people are saying, right? It doesn't matter if the person is same sex. We still have love. We still believe the same things you do. We still have love. You see, because it's not about intent. And these are and no one wants to talk about that. No one wants to be critical. And you know what? I've been trying to be a little bit on the edge. I've been trying not to get into it. Well, I'm going to get into it now, and it's going to be over for me. I'm done with this issue. I don't care what Paul and John, my next door neighbors do. I don't care who, la 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 la. Okay, I don't. I really don't. What I do care about is the fact that we are now having a group of people, primarily who are left liberals, primarily secular atheists, primarily people who are from the pro-gay marriage arena, and that they're saying, you know what? No one should oppose them. If you're a baker and you have any kind of intent, you shouldn't do anything. If you're a baker and your job is to bake, no matter what the cake is. I think if you ask a lot of these people the same thing, if they were intellectually honest with themselves and you said, you know what, there's some times when you're not supposed to do something, right? Well, a lot of these people are people who probably are against Monsanto, right? GMOs. Do you realize that logic could be extended to people who you don't want to make GMO food? Okay, it's the law now. You have to make GMO food. You see how that works? And the issue here is that it's not just about the legality and the rights. That's a part of it. Okay, but that's not the big part of the issue here. The big part of the issue here is the rhetoric. The language that we use when we start to say that if somebody doesn't do something, they're going to get fined. Once again, with the Kim Davis situation, I get it. I get why people would want her to be gone. I get, and I think that in some senses, what her job is to do what she's to do, which is to give out those licenses. I'm sure there's people who work for clerk's offices who don't want to issue driver's licenses, who don't want to issue that kind of stuff to people that think they're like, oh, that person's way too old to drive that shit. No. It's not that person's job to determine that. And you know what? For the liberal pro-gay movement, guess what? The judges that ruled in your favor are tantamount doing the same thing Kim Davis is doing. Bigger scheme, obviously. Obviously, say a judge has more authority, more autonomy, more higher clout to do whatever he wants or she wants to do because they're a judge. No. Apparently you don't understand the concept of checks and balances. They interpreted something, and she's saying, I'm interpreting something. I'm saying that how I interpret things is that I should not be forced against my will, whether you agree or not. See, nobody on either side wants to admit the wrong the other side does, and no one wants to admit that they're all being hypocrites. And the things that they're fighting for are things that they're fighting against. And it makes me sick. It makes me sick. But America has long forgo traditions. You can say America has been in the tradition of defying tradition, right? You can say it from a government standpoint, you could say it from a political standpoint, and you could say it from a cultural standpoint. When the first Christians, I'm using that word loosely, when the Quakers came here from Europe, from England and Germany, do you know why they wanted to come to this country? They hated the idea of traditions. They hated the idea of authority. That someone would tell them how they need to worship. And many Christians in today's American evangelical spectrum do not like the idea of someone saying, oh, you shouldn't worship that way. You shouldn't have a guitar in your worship. You shouldn't have a big screen with the words plastered up on the wall. You should probably have a little bit more decorum and a little bit more reverence for the elements of the altar. Right? They don't like being told those kinds of things. And rightfully so. Rightfully so. Not rightfully so because they're right, rightfully so because to them they're in the constant idea of rejecting these things. So gay marriage and rejecting some of those ideas of traditional marriage, that is just the next bump down the road. We have to remember from a Christian standpoint, from a conservative Christian standpoint, that marriage and church, the family and the church, not only are they're connected and that they're the backbone of all society, okay, but that church tells us how to be a family. The church itself uses the family as a doctrinal stance on the reality of what life is. The role of the husband as compared to the role of Jesus Christ and his bride, the church. Okay, so again, more reasoning why you can't just have two brides and two grooms. Right? The idea that there has to be a male figure and a female figure. And that offends modern day people. It offends most people in this country. And guess what, Christians, or seemingly Christians? It also offends a lot of you too. This idea that only a man should be a pastor? Oh, well, anyone should be a pastor if they want to be. It's the same logic, it's the same speaking, the same use of defending gay marriage, right? Oh, well, I should be able to love whoever I want to love. It doesn't matter the gender. And see, once you start determining little things, like whatever, that doesn't matter, this doesn't matter, then it's only a matter of time till the rest of society, those outside of Christianity, are going to say, it doesn't matter on this either. And if you're going to be a stick in the mud about the issue and not have that consistency, then guess what? What is the rightful, now, logical conclusion of your standpoint? While I'd understand you're right, and some of the things you're saying are right, your logical conclusion would be, or the thing that would make the most sense, is that the reason why you're consistent about this and not this is because you actually have a personal bias towards gay people. You may have a potential bias towards that. Or the idea of gay marriage is such an offensive thing to you, it's the last thing, right? It's the last thing that you'll allow. But you've allowed so much already, evangelical America. You've said it doesn't matter what we do in church, as long as we love God. It doesn't matter what doctrine we have. No doctrine matters except for the fact that I love Jesus, right? We've had 20-something years, 30-something years of this kind of idea that it doesn't matter the doctrinal stances that you have. It doesn't matter what your creeds are. It doesn't matter the traditions and the councils that you have. Those are all man-made, right? And you know what? What's the argument for some people who are probably for gay marriage against the traditional? Well, your idea is a man-made substructure. When you follow the logic, their arguments are the same. It's the same vein. It's the same fruit. It's the same thing. So where do we find ourselves in this conundrum? You either have to be all traditional or not. And if you're going to be semi-traditional, then when should you decide what's traditional or not? Who allowed you? Who determined that you are the. And that's the thing that is kind of the upsetting thing about Kim Davis, no? Who elected her to say what is and what isn't? And that's why I think some people on the left and some people on the progressive pro-gay side perceive it as, this person is dictating the religion. Although they confuse that and say that whenever any Christian defends their reality. Okay, and so we have to determine that. Is she defending something? Probably to some point, yes. But because she didn't follow the same model, that she doesn't have the same consistency, they're going to not believe what she has to say. And consistencies mattered. So if we want to ask ourselves why gay marriage has become now a reality, why atheism has become very more a popular thing as a reality, we as Christians have to acknowledge, at least Christians, I mean it in a more general sense, not traditional Christians, we know exactly what it is. And yet you modern liberal Christians, you Protestants who said, you know what, it's okay. You can be against abortion and be for the pill. What? You could be against abortion and be okay with using contraception. What? Don't you see? And of course, they want to attack the Catholics. Now, I'm not a Catholic. Let me come out there and let me make this straight. I am not Catholic, but I believe a lot as the Catholics do. And I am probably one of the very few LCMS Lutherans I know, besides my fiance and probably a few others, who actually follow that same line as the Catholics do on conception and on things like the pill. You see, it has to be consistent, and those things are consistent. And what is killing us as a culture has been America, Christianity, having a buffet-style kind of theology, taking what they like and leaving what they don't like. Well, you can't blame it. I'm sorry. You can't blame other people for doing the exact same thing. I'm John Mosman, and I can talk more about this if you like. But boy, I had to get that off my chest. I had to say what I meant. And I really had to get that off because it is pissing me off. It is really upsetting me. We have to acknowledge that inconsistency. What that inconsistency means is that has been the death of our society. And it's us as the more moderate, the more Protestant, liberal Christians out there who've been so liberal with doctrine, that have been so liberal with liturgy, that you have helped propel this myth that it doesn't matter as long as you love God. And you know what? What point is it then about gender? You say, well, it's because God says it's wrong. Okay, yeah, it does. The Bible says a lot of things that are wrong. And as the atheist, agnostic, pro-gay side liberals have pointed out,
I'm feeling right to be by your side.
They pointed out this, right? They pointed that out. And now you don't like that they have. The inability for consistency in our doctrine and our theology and our liturgy as what made Christianity not only fail in America to get people in the church, it's what's propelled everything else in our society to go to crap. Own that. We gotta own that. I'm done with this topic. I'm done with it. Anyways, I gotta go. Thanks for listening. If you want to follow me, go to my website. You can go to my Twitter at real_JL Mosman. That's my new Twitter. I had to switch it out. Anyways, eventually, people will catch on to this. Goodbye.
Like what you're listening to? Then visit johnmosman.net for much more.